to Movie Scouse 007's Euro Truck Simulator 2 Keyboard Road Warrior series, where we aim to play Euro Truck Simulator 2 with nothing but a laptop and its keyboard. So, we're in Ostrava, in Poland. We have £113,678. So guess what that means? That means our little empire is about to grow. So we're going to buy our truck. We want a Volvo, and we've got a nice big dealership. So let's buy online. We want an FH sleeper, and we're going to customize it to get rid of the unnecessarily large 460 bhp engine that you don't need your drivers to have in order to succeed. So that's £80,184. We're going to plonk it in Berlin. We're going to stick it in slot number 2, and cool. Right, let's exit that. Let's go to the recruitment agency, and let's hire us a driver. So I want a spread. I want more than 2. I'd like 3, but I'd like them to be spread. And Jonas has long distance and high value and eco, but he's only 0.8. Let's see. Petter has long distance and fragile. Sam has fragile and eco. Let's go with Peter. Let's hire Peter, and let's put him in Berlin in slot number 2. Boom. Okay. That's that done. Let's look at our little garage. Let's look at driver manager. So that's me, that's John, that's Imre, that's Zombor, and that's Bujo. They are the Liverpool drivers. As you can see, it says Liverpool there in the garage. And then we've got Cameron and Peter. Cameron is already earning us over £1,000 a day. Obviously, I am the highest earner. I'm not sure that makes much sense in terms of the game. I'm doing £26 at least per kilometre. But there we go. So these two guys are... Right, he's resting. Why is he resting? Why are you resting? Because he's just delivered a digger to Cologne. Okay. He's sleeping between loads. So we've still got £32,000. That's not bad. You can see what I mean. The more trucks you have, the more income you've got rolling in, the easier it is to make money. So, let us repair and recuperate. Oops. Parking brake off. And let's get out of this this yard, this depot. So we want to head right and then left at the junction. So okay. After this blue car's gone, stick in the left lane and get ourselves ready for a left turn. And we're about to go. And let's cut this guy. Ooh, wrong side of the road. Ah. We'll get some rest. We'll repair the vehicle. We'll get some rest. And where are we? 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So I fear we will be on another night journey after our rest. So let's see how much it requires to get this thing going. £366. See, we're doing better. We're doing better. Clearly my week off affected my driving standards, and so now that I've got a bit of practice and I'm back in the saddle. Sorry, now that I'm back in the saddle, as it were, I'm getting back into the groove. Right, E, boom. Okay, and that was probably a loan. And yeah, it's 9 o'clock, which means it's going to be a nighttime drive again. Okay, let's quickly look at the bank. So, because we've got 46,000, we are close to paying this off. 52 out of 70. It's going quite well. We've paid off 52 of our instalments. We've got 82,000 left out of the 320,000 left to pay. This should be the last loan we need, the first and only loan we need. So hopefully we're okay. All right, let's get ourselves a job. Let's go in the job market, freight market. Click on Ostrava. So we've got Parma. Ooh. Don't even have to think about it. Parma. Although Amsterdam, we haven't been to Amsterdam. We don't. I want to make Amsterdam one of our capitals that we stick a truck in. So we've got Berlin. We haven't got London. We haven't got Paris. Rome isn't on this map, so we can't do Rome, but we can do Vienna. But we haven't got Vienna yet. We do drive through Vienna to go to Parma. But no, I want Parma. Parma is one of the two cities that I added. So let's go back and get my screenshot of my journey. So yes, oh, that's beautiful, and one of our cities that we added. For some reason, we're going to Modena first. Okay. Well, ours is not the reason why. Ours is just to fire up our truck and hit the road. So, I see Cameron earned £2,000 there. That's excellent. Right, let's rock. I have noticed that it doesn't matter whether I've got a load on the back or not. I always want to swing out my lorry for some reason. Oh no, we got green. Go before it turns red. Let's take this right. I don't know what to talk about on this journey, and this is going to be a relatively long one, so I need to come up with a subject. So let's take that job. Actually, not that bad. It's 17 hours. Only a little bit longer than our 14-hour journey. So I'm just going to take a sip of tea. Apologies. Right. So let's go grab our load. You can see it just there, the white tube. The tanker, sorry. And oh, it's so much easier doing this in daylight. Oh, no, it's not apparently. Okay, we got away with that. You can really feel well, not feel, but you can observe how much the load is taking it out on this on the truck. So we should be okay. We should make it out before that car on the left passes us by, and we did. There it is, just there. Okay. So we talked about last video we talked about books that become films, and how most of the time the book remains the better option because you create your own world, but how there are always exceptions to a rule, and that's what made a rule. I don't quite understand the expression, the exception that proves the rule, but it's there, and intelligent people, which I don't necessarily include myself in their number, seem to agree that that's a thing. So the exception that proves the rule. Okay. Yeah, we just made it through that set of traffic lights before it went red. That's what you need to do. I'm probably going way too fast. And if this was the UK, I would have had at least 2 speeding tickets by now. So I'm going straight over because I'm pulling a left-hand loop, and I'm going west of my current position. Oh, no, no, no. Ah, I could feel that, and I tried to counter it, and I tried to do it without braking, which was stupid. Ah, right, hang on, just before we go anywhere. Oh, thank goodness for that. No damage to the load. Oh, Cameron has earned more money. He's leveled up. This is good. He's doing better than me, because I've already cost my little empire some money with that ridiculously speedy ramp. What I was trying to do was not use the brake. I was trying to use momentum and gravity to slow the vehicle down. So a lack of momentum and gravity. So the angle of the road and the weight of the vehicle. I was trying to use the weight of the vehicle in the angle of the road, because this isn't real. This is a game, and so I don't know whether the developers took that sort of detail into account. I know they take the. I know when you hit a gradient, you require that the vehicle slows down because you're having to use more power to get up the gradient. But I don't know whether it works in reverse, whether it's slowing down helps. But I did a foolish thing. It's probably going to cost about £1,200 to repair. So, are you going to pull in front of me, are you? You shouldn't. You've no reason to, but it doesn't mean you won't. If history is any judge. Oops, nearly clouted him. So we've got 10 hours until we have to rest. We've got 26 hours to complete the job, and it should take us 16, so we've got a spare 10. Uh, 26, 16. I don't know if we've got enough time to sleep. Okay, that's interesting. We'll see. Because you usually sleep for 11 hours. You usually pick up a little of extra time because the game is usually figuring on you not being able to make the speed limit, and I normally make up a little bit of time. This is clearly an urgent delivery, and this one's going to be skin of the teeth time. I don't want the load to be late. So let's just talk about books. I've already given you a couple of in the previous video I gave you a couple of the books that I like, by the authors I like. I like Patrick O'Brien and his naval series. I like Bernard Cornwell and his Sharp series. I haven't got into his others. He's got a series of other. I think he's got about 2 or 3 other series, because he stopped with the Sharp. Sharp reached quite a high level and then went and did performed some task in Chile. I think I touched my touchpad on the laptop, so just moved my hand. That's why I started looking around like a madman. Obviously I love. I'm enjoying the Game of Thrones books. I wouldn't say I'm loving them. I'm enjoying them. Um, I read a couple of TV program tie-ins. My wife loves a TV series called Castle, and I quite like it. Well, I love it too. It's soap opera-y, it's a bit trashy, but it's fun. It's funny. And it's called Castle, and it's God, swine, bad timing. And it's got Nathan Fillion in, who was in the wonderful series Firefly. If you've never seen a series called Firefly, I urge you to watch it. It's another reason why 20th Century Fox is not my favourite TV studio, because they canned this brilliant show unnecessarily. And then Joss Whedon, who was the creator of the show, had to persuade and cajole people to give him money to make a film to wrap up the story. And I also watch a TV series called Burn Notice, which is about a spy that's been disavowed by the US government. And both of those TV series have book tie-ins with extra stories. Now, the Burn Notice one is just different stories that fit in between the TV series, possibly between the seasons. Sorry, I'm talking, if you're an American, I'm talking about, when I say series, I mean what you would call a season. Whereas the Castle tie-in books actually reference the entire series. The character Castle is a fictional novelist, crime novelist, and he decided that he wanted to ride along with a fictional detective, New York detective called Kate Beckett, and he was inspired to write a book with a character called Nikki Heat, and they make reference to the books all the way through the TV series, but the books actually tie into the TV series as well, in that they reference things that happened in the TV series. So if a crime occurred, they will modify that crime to make it work for the book. And what it is it's a sort of a riff on what he's actually doing. So instead of a novelist following a detective, it's a newspaper journalist. And so the fictional real detective is Kate Beckett, the fictional detective is Nikki Heat. The fictional real writer is Richard Castle. The fictional writer is Jameson Rook. So Castle and Rook. Yeah. And so it references the TV series all the way through. It's an entertaining TV series, and the books are entertaining in that, because they talk about the books, it's kind of nice to be able to read the books. Now, the books are listed as having been written by Richard Castle, but of course, as Richard Castle is a fictional character, we know that that's actually not. It's a ghostwriting, and I believe that the books are actually written by the creator of the TV series and the showrunner, and I can't remember his name. His name's Andrew something or other. I apologise to him. I should know his name. So I like those. I like the tie-ins. I am a massive fan of a British author called Robert Harris. Another person whose books I would urge you to read. Please read. Robert Harris has written quite a few books now. I'm trying to think. I think his first fictional book was a book called Fatherland, set in an alternate universe where Germany actually won the Second World War, and the landscape is slightly different. And the story revolves around a German police officer who is investigating a murder, and it turns out that the murder is a great deal more complicated and political, and his life is altered by this. and he decided, I think he decided on the alternate universe, so that he could have the sort of the kind of thing they had in the Soviet era, where you couldn't speak freely for fear of being quoted or misquoted or and then reported to the authorities. It's a fantastic book. It was made into a awful, crappy TV movie that had the otherwise brilliant Rutger Hauer and Miranda Richardson in. Such a shame, such a tragic waste. He followed it up with trying to think now, what did he follow it up with? Archangel? Was that what came next? Which is about a writer called Fluke Kelso. Fluke is a nickname because he wrote a brilliant novel, but hasn't really done anything significant since, and everyone in this field of history assumes that it was just a fluke and that he'll never write anything again. And then he is approached by a Russian, an old Russian dude who claimed to have been Stalin's sugar. Please stop. Thank you. Stalin's former chauffeur, who claims that Stalin had a child, and there are a group of Russians, who want to return to the Soviet-style era, and are trying to find this son, who would be in his 50s, I think, when the book was written, so that they can use him as a sort of a rallying point for a return to communism. And as is always the case, its return to communism is desired by the stupid and by the people for whom communism was actually quite profitable. So those who had a measure of political power and influence, who lost it when the Politburo in the Kremlin became a, in quotes, democracy. He wrote a book called Pompeii about a chap who is a specialist in aqueducts, who's brought to Pompeii to figure out why Pompeii's having trouble with its water supply, and it's set in the days running up to the Vesuvius eruption. So obviously the Vesuvius eruption is actually which is actually what causing the problems with the water supply. And it's also a bit of a detective story, a bit of a murder mystery story, a bit of a mystery story, and a lot of political intrigue. He then followed that up with, I think, The Ghost. He followed it up with forget the name of the book. He's writing a trilogy about life in Roman life, a trilogy that revolves around a great Roman orator called Cicero, Marcus Tullius Cicero, who is, in spite of the way that writing that was done in the Roman era, is a well-regarded and oft-quoted Roman politician, a great discovery. We've discovered Austria's capital, Vienna. And you know how I feel about discoveries. Let's just look at our time. What have we got? We've got 23 hours. It's going to take us 12. So we're already making time up. So let's quickly look at the map. No, do you know what? I'm going to leave those discoverables until I actually visit Vienna. I'm going to do that. If they were easier to get to and I had more time, I might. But we are low on time, and I don't want to risk... Whoa. I don't want to risk not making it on time, because it's a fine and it's a blot on our copybook. So, yes, I forget what the first one's called, but the second one is called Imperium. No, the first one's called Imperium. The second one is called Lustrum. They changed the name of the book for the American audience because I think they believed that Americans would be either too squeamish to buy a book that had the word lust on the front, for putting aside the fact that lustrum has nothing to do with sex and has everything to do with power. They changed it to something else. I don't know what they changed it to. Frankly, I don't care. But the two books are Imperium and Lustrum. But he broke in well, he started writing Lustrum and stopped writing it when Tony Blair retired to write a book called The Ghost, which is about a ghostwriter that's writing the memoirs of a recently retired prime minister. Well, not retired, a chap who's not prime minister anymore, who's holed up in Martha's Vineyard, and their original ghostwriter has been found dead and they need to replace him. He's just released a book called An Officer and a Spy, which is near the top of the queue of books for me to read. I don't know what that's about yet. I don't want to know. I kind of like to read Robert Harris's books blind. After he released Lustrum, he released a book called The Fear Index, which was about a brilliant mathematician and statistician who went to work at CERN, but then got lured to work at a Swiss investment bank, creating investment portfolios. And a murder has occurred, and he is suspected of committing the murder, and he needs to discover who actually committed the murder so that he can free himself. But he's a little bit Asperger's, a little bit OCD, and so he finds the process difficult. So those are the books. So it's I've got to count, because I can't use my brain to count, because I'm using my brain to drive. I have to count out loud. So we've got Fatherland and Arcane, which is 2. We've got Pompeii, which is 3. Fear Index is 4. The Ghost is 5. The 2 Rome books are 6 and 7. And number 8 is Officer and a Spy. So I think he's written 8 novels. 8 excellent novels that I thoroughly enjoy. And would happily read in fact, I've reread all of the ones apart from Fear Index and Officer and a Spy, which I haven't read for the first time. So I'll probably read I'll read Officer and a Spy, and then I'll read Fear Index again, and then I'll get on to the next Game of Thrones book, because I've been putting that off. I think. Yes, I think that those are my favourites. I also like Harry Harrison, who writes a series of books called which revolve around a character called the Stainless Steel Rat, which is set in as far in the future. I love the short stories of Philip K. Dick. I think he's a brilliant science fiction writer. It's very clear from his writing that his vision was set in a 1950s version of the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th century. So he'll refer to dials and he'll refer to levers, and we all know that the future of computing is either gesture-based or touch-based or virtual reality. All things that were not part of the 1950s when Philip K. Dick was writing his best work. What else do I enjoy? I love reading history, reading about history. At the moment, I'm particularly fond of... I'm trying to find as many books as I can on the gunpowder plot. Now, if you're not British or from a country that was a former British colony, then the gunpowder plot is probably irrelevant. You might be aware of it vaguely if you watched V for Vendetta, because the gunpowder plot is referenced in that film very quite frequently, but not in enough detail that you could understand what they were referring to or understand why V was dressed and masked the way he was. But the gunpowder plot was when Queen Elizabeth I died, she didn't have any children. She left no heir. There was no obvious succession path, no one to take over as king or queen. So they very quickly approached James VII of Scotland in order to try and unify Scotland and England. He then became James I of Great Britain. They created the Act of Union, which united Scotland and England. And Elizabeth had been a fierce Protestant. She had followed her father in the sort of abandoning of Rome and what they called popery. Not popery, but popery, as in the Pope, the Pontiff. Whereas James I was a Protestant, but his wife was a Catholic, and so the Catholics in England believed, or it had been led to believe, that as a result of James I becoming king with a Catholic wife, that the Catholics in England wouldn't face the kind of persecution that they'd been suffering under Elizabeth. Now, I am an atheist, so I don't come down on either side. I think both sides of essentially the same bleeding religion are just as stupid as each other, and arguing over which is the right version is as boneheadedly moronic as arguing over which is the best colour of Skittles instead of just bloody eating them. But it was a big thing in those days. In fact, it was such a big thing. I would have been burnt for heresy because I don't believe in God. Just as Catholics would have liked to have burnt Protestants and Protestants would have liked to have burnt Catholics. There was a measure of tolerance because the transfer from Catholicism to Protestantism happened over the course of a very short period of time. Basically, Henry VIII didn't want to be married to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, needed to get a divorce, wasn't granted that divorce by the Catholic Church, by the Pope, by the Vatican, and so because he wanted to get divorced, he decided to abandon Rome and create the Church of England. So yet another example of a religious person bending his religion in order to get what he wants, thus enabling me to call Henry VIII a hypocrite. So they conducted a vendetta against the Catholics. Monasteries and abbeys were burnt to the ground, all of their property seized, their land seized, and it paid for a number of wars. Actually, we're running perilously low on petrol, so let's get some petrol. And okay, engine off, petrol on. So I enjoy the Catholics thought they'd get freedom. They ultimately didn't get the kind of freedom they were hoping for, so a number of people decided to conduct a plot. They were going to murder everyone in the Parliament. Now, the Parliament building is not the Palace of Westminster that the world knows today. The Parliament building was a very much smaller building, and it sat on stilts. So the ground floor was not on the ground. Right, hang on. Let's look at 9 hours. Okay, yes. Let's get some sleep. So engine off. Oh no, I don't want to cancel. No, I don't. Exit. Oh, there we're getting some rest. Phew, that was close. Daylight. Excellent. Okay, let's hit the road. We don't need that light. Okay, we're back on the road. So, 9 hours to go. So, who else do I like to read? I'm trying to think. When I do these videos, I probably really need to do some notes for stuff like this, like I did with the appalling Doctor Who the discussion on my journey a couple of journeys ago, where I professed to be an expert in Doctor Who and then proved conclusively I'm anything but. There are a couple of authors I'm interested in discovering. Everyone who's got an opinion on novels is directing me towards an American writer called Kurt Vonnegut, who writes who writes social commentary in the form of science fiction. I want to get. I've downloaded onto my Kindle Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, which I'm quite interested in reading. I want to read Catcher in the Rye, but the trouble is I'll have to read a physical copy of that because Catcher in the Rye is still not available on Kindle. It's not the only thing that's forbidden with Catcher in the Rye. It's also a book that you cannot adapt for a film because they won't sell the rights. I think it's one of the things that the writer didn't want. He didn't want his book made into a film. Fair enough. It is his art to dispose with as he sees fit, and if he doesn't see fit, I want to read To Kill a Mockingbird. I would like. I'm halfway through the novels about the detective. Oh, crikey, do you know, my brain is seizing up. I'm pretty sure the Alzheimer's is having an effect. There's an American author who writes a series of detectives. I think the character's name is Sam Spade. And I can't remember the name of the author, and it's a really obvious author, and every American who's ever read a book is probably screaming at the screen right now, and I apologise profusely, but I cannot remember the name of the author. But I am two books into, I think it's 4 or 5, two of the 4 or 5 novels that he wrote. I want to read Wool. I'm quite interested in reading Wool. My wife is currently reading that. Sounds interesting. There's also, I'm a gamer, and there's a book called Ready Player One, which I'm quite interested in reading. I did try to read the Slayer book. Not Slayer. Oh, crikey. Seeker. The book's about the legend of the Seeker. Terry Goodwin. The Terry Goodwin novels, but they're too long and they're too convoluted, and they're not as well written, and they're not even as well written as Tolkien. They're easier to read than Tolkien. They're not as well written. He also has a tendency to over-describe, but not as much as Tolkien has. But Tolkien's a better writer. It's just his books are terminally boring because he spends so long describing things. I want to work my way through the various Shakespeare plays, and as not all of them have been recorded, and not all the versions are unabridged, I kind of need to do it myself. Which means that I need to read them. Possibly I need to read them out loud. Now I'm picking them up one at a time on the Kindle as they become available. I don't like the complete works. Well, I do like the complete works. I like dipping in and out. I like having the complete works available to me, but they're a bit sort of cumbersome to deal with. So I'd rather have the individual plays so I can see what I have and haven't read, because I tend to move my books into a folder as I've read them. So there's that. Who else am I reading at the moment? I'm reading some books by a guy called Stephen. Oh crap! That is. You're kidding me. How is that not damage? I seem to be getting away with it good and proper. I do not know how I am doing it. You can see already my income's gone up to 52,000. We had that rest break which added a load of money, but the drivers that we've got are bringing in the cash. You don't have to do it as quickly as I've done. You can spend a fortune on various trucks. You can buy all of the. You don't have to do it this way. This is just the way I am doing it. I'm driving a sim truck on a sim career. I want to drive that career. I want to grow my business. And my feeling is that I'm enjoying the driving at the moment. I'm enjoying chatting to you guys. I'm enjoying creating this little empire. And my hope is that by the time I have got fed up with this little empire, that I will have loads of spare cash that I can use to play with. I can buy trucks. I can buy and upgrade them and customize them and titivate them to keep my interest in. Maybe I won't want to do that. Maybe I will. And as I stated in the previous video, what I might do is, once this career has reached level 30 and I've got enough cash, I might siphon off a separate save file, and then I'll be able to show you guys the various upgrades and what they look like, and how you can show you how to customize paint jobs and what upgrades go with what. And then I'll show you I'll show you the very basic lorry versus the very pimped lorry, and you can see the difference for yourself. But yes, in the meantime, I need to concentrate on this little career and getting this little empire going. So we've got one. What I found, doing my career the way I'm doing it, in that I'm spending all my money on upgrading my empire rather than funning around with trucks, and truck mods, and funning around with a ton of affectatious upgrades, is you reach a certain point in the career of your little empire where you're able. It takes. At the moment it's taking me 2 to 3 journeys to get a new truck. In my private profile, which I played on a couple of times on holiday, every journey I was buying a garage, I was upgrading it, and then I was filling it with 5 trucks, and I was doing that at the end of every journey. Come on. Oh, crikey. No. Oh, gosh. No, I'm alright. So, I got 8 hours 50 to deliver. I got 5. See, I've actually ended up with plenty of time. I could have gone into Vienna, but it just didn't feel right going into Vienna. I've discovered Vienna, and that's lovely and everything. I will find all the discoverables when I do a journey to Vienna, and I want to go to Vienna because it's the capital of Austria. So I'm going to buy a garage in there, and when I buy the garage in Vienna, I can then I can find the truck, the dealership, and the recruitment agency. We'll do that then. Okay, so we were talking about books and what I'm reading and what I want to read, and oh yeah, before the break I was talking about history. I was talking about the gunpowder plot. Let's get back to the gunpowder plot. The Catholics wanted religious freedom. They weren't getting it under James I as they hoped they would, so they decided to kill all of the lords and all the government, which really the king and his court. And as I said, the Palace of Westminster that you and I know today as the home of British government wasn't. It was a palace in Westminster, but it was a building on stilts. It wasn't the building that we see today. The leader of the gunpowder plot was a chap called Robert Catesby, and he and his brother were the sort of the main thrust behind it. There were several other players, but the figure that everybody knows, the figure that V from Vendetta apes with his appearance, is actually a chap called Guy Fawkes. He was a bit of a mercenary. He was born in Yorkshire. He went over to Spain to fight the Spanish Wars. And while he was over there, he learnt about explosives, and he fought in a war, so he was a useful man. So when he came back, he was recruited into this gang. He was the explosives expert. The initial plan was to dig a tunnel underneath the building, drag the explosives through this tunnel, and then set them off. That didn't work. They were finding it too difficult to dig the tunnel. Technology wasn't what it is today, and they weren't able to do that. So what they did was they rented the room underneath the Parliament building. It sounds bonkers that they actually managed to rent a huge amount of space underneath, and then they put barrels and barrels of gunpowder in this rented room. Now, they've done an experiment. Richard Hammond of Top Gear fame, UK Top Gear fame, fronted a program where they recreated the building and the amount of explosives. They had to go to Spain to get the explosives, the gunpowder, because we don't make gunpowder in the UK anymore. We simply don't need it. And it's very difficult to get hold of the ingredients to make gunpowder. But anyway, they imported the gunpowder. They built on a firing range, a military firing range. They built a full-size replica of the building. They put cardboard cutouts of the various figures that would have been in the Parliament on that day, and then they set off the explosive. And I think they found it was something like 4 or 6 times as much gunpowder was needed. It completely blew the back wall of the Parliament building where the king would have been stood off. So the king would have been eviscerated. Everybody in that room would have been killed. They had the explosives ready to go. They got unlucky. They got caught. The Guy Fawkes was looking after the gunpowder. He was guarding it, and he was captured, and he was tortured, violently tortured, and then the king's chief advisor, or I forget the job title, made it. I think his name was Sir Robert Cecil. I think, but he led the investigation, and then presented it to the king in a manner. he presented this information to the king in a manner that made it feel like the king was finding this out for himself. And the plotters were uncovered. They also had a subplot. They didn't just want to kill the king, they wanted to install a puppet queen. James I's youngest daughter was Elizabeth. So the UK's current queen, Elizabeth II, wouldn't have been queen. Elizabeth II would have been the Elizabeth that they attempted to kidnap. But the plot was uncovered before they could do so. They escaped to the Midlands in the UK. They went through a minuscule, tiny little village called Birmingham, which is of course now the second largest city in England, the third largest in the United Kingdom. But at the time it was a small village, maybe a hamlet even. It wasn't at all important, or in any way large or interesting or of any value at that time to Great Britain. So it was all uncovered, and I'm trying to read as much as I can. The trouble is, because it's a very English story, there aren't that many books on it. If you want to be a big story, you've got to involve Russia or America or mainland Europe. You've got to have a big audience. And not a lot of people I've got to really slow down. Not a lot of people in the UK really care, beyond the fact that November the 5th, which was the day that the plot was uncovered, beyond the fact that November the 5th, we celebrate that day with fireworks and the burning of a guy. Even though Guy Fawkes, or as he preferred to be known, Guido Fawkes, was simply an employee, not the ringleader. The reason we know his name and that we're so familiar with him is because he was the one that was captured and brutally tortured for the information. There's a very interesting... that he signed a document before he was tortured, and then he signed his confession, and the two signatures almost bear no relation whatsoever. The guy had almost no use of his hands. I think his hands had to be held to make the signature. Then he was hung, drawn and quartered, and if you've ever watched Braveheart, you'll have an inkling. It's not exactly how hanging, drawing and quartering works, but you'll have an inkling of how it is. You're hung until you're almost dead, but not quite dead. Then you're you're dragged behind a horse. That's the drawing part. And then you're quartered, which means that they open your stomach up. They pull your intestines out. Then they cut you into 4 bits. Oh, God damn it. Okay, definitely, yeah. I don't know why that occurred. I wasn't going that fast, was I? I'll have to look at the video. Perhaps I was going too fast. But I've done 3% damage, so we're not getting an excellent. We're getting a good work on this one. And we're only 3 hours. As is typical with me, a huge journey, and in the very last part of the journey is when I do all the damage. Oh well. So I like that. Oh, you're kidding me. I'm really going for it. I'm really going for it. Yep, I'm up to 4 now. I'm up to 4% damage. Because I didn't spot that little orange mini. How could you not spot an orange mini? I'm not getting much traction out of my engine, so I'm wondering if I haven't... Oh, I nearly did it again with the blue mini. I'm not wondering if I've done any damage. No, I'm steadily climbing. I must be on a gradient. That's what it is. So much for my good run of excellence. I got 2 excellents, possibly 3 in a row, and now I'm hoping to get a good work. I'm wondering if it's because I'm dragging fluid and I'm not driving very carefully. I'm going very fast. I think the way that they mimic the movement of the fluid is they just raise the centre of gravity of the vehicle. So they create a much higher tipping pivot point. I think is how they do it. Oh well, we're in Italy. We are a cough and a spit from Parma, which is our ultimate destination. I believe we go through Modena to get to Parma. So there we go. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, like every boy that was grew up with grandparents that served in World War II, I'm fascinated by World War II. But that led me to be fascinated by World War One. I'm equally fascinated by World War One. That's I find that bizarre and strange. It's one of the it's as with everything in human history, war, violence tends to be the greatest catalyst for technological advancement. So at the beginning of World War One, we had gentlemen walking slowly along fields and officers with horses. And by the end of the war, you had motorcycles, motor cars, tanks, aerial reconnaissance, the first war to involve aerial reconnaissance, aerial bombing, dogfights, the creation of air forces. Although there is this traditional assumption that British and German soldiers spent most of their time in trenches, that's actually not true. They would have been rotated in and out of the trenches, and then there's an assumption that the British were lions led by donkeys. That wasn't a contemporary opinion. That was an opinion, a hindsight opinion. We are talking about an era of generals who'd started a war where wars were fought in lines, in brightly coloured uniforms, and we went to a war where you started using guerrilla tactics, and you fought at night to protect yourself. The generals had to get used to that. I mean, we are talking about an era when they refused to give pilots parachutes because they felt they would be less likely to. They felt they would be more likely to jump out of the aeroplane if they had a parachute. This is also the last war where they shot people for cowardice. Nowadays, we understand that yes, there are cowards. There are human beings who are in the military who are cowards, but actually a lot of what they thought was cowardice was in fact what they then started to call shell shock, but which we know now as post-traumatic stress disorder, where the brain starts to shut down because it can't deal with what's happening around it. You're watching people that you've become friendly with dying literally in front of you in some cases. And I know I abhor the use of the word literally, unless it actually means unless it literally means literally. But yes, they were seeing people being cut to pieces by explosions and by gunfire before their very eyes, and it wasn't the sort of the gentlemanly cut and thrust. It was gunfire. It was explosions, which would literally. Oh, there I go. I've used it again. Explosions where people would be blown into pieces, not knocked into pieces, blown up. Where I don't know that I could cope with it. I don't know whether I could do what the people that fought in World War One did. And we also in Britain, we were at the time a very stoic nation. I think possibly that is the last war where it was. I think maybe the Second World War was the last war where we didn't talk about it. You just didn't talk about what you did. You did it, and then you compartmentalized it, and you never spoke about it again. And your family didn't know what you'd done. People are talked about by friends after they've died, and the family are as shocked to hear the details of what their loved one did during the war. Engine malfunction, I'm not surprised, considering how much damage I've done. I think it's 13%. 14%. Right, there's Parma. So we skirted Modena, we went to Parma. I might see if I can do a short haul job to Modena, and then I will have I will be back with the whole of Italy in my grasp. So we've got to do a U-turn, which means we're looking for an overhead or under the road. Yeah, we're looking at an under the road. We're going to be travelling under this motorway imminently, I think, at this junction. So World War, and another war that fascinates me because it's the first war that I was consciously aware of, and that's the Falklands War. If you're not British or Argentinian, well, if you're not British, you won't know. If you're not British, you won't know it as the Falklands War. If you're not British or Argentinian, you won't know. You probably won't know about it at all. The Falklands War was. The Falkland Islands are disputed by the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands are disputed by Argentina. But the fact of the matter is that the people that live on those two islands now are the great grandchildren of original settlers. I mean, it's been constantly settled by the British for over 138 years. Argentina claims it. They've occupied the island for maybe a year, maybe two, since it was discovered in the 17th century. The last two times they've been kicked off the island. First time they were kicked off the island, they were kicked off by the Americans because the Argentinians were using the island as a base to attack American whaling ships. I don't know why that guy's just sat there. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the second time they were kicked off after an illegal invasion. I refuse to debate the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands with an Argentinian because the Argentinians, yay, we've discovered Parma, because the Argentinians don't quite understand. Oh God, how the hell did I get away with that? I've got no idea how I got away with that, but I got away with it. And it's my favourite of the entrances. It's the stone archway. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in this way. Yes, you're going to stop, buddy. I really don't like this style of entrance because I find it difficult to judge where my lorry is. Are you kidding me? What was that too? See, I hate that kind of entrance. It's impossible to get into without doing some damage to your lorry. Right, I'm not in a very good mood, so this is not going to be an in one. Plus I can't get the right angle anyway. So I'm fascinated by the Falklands. It's a war which, it's possibly the last war that a nation. Well, straighten up. It's possibly the last war that will be conducted by a single nation against another single nation, because it's not really feasible to do it. Logistically, it's not feasible to mount that kind of battle on your own anymore. To be honest, it rarely has been logistically possible to mount that kind. Oh, nearly. No, wrong direction. Ugh. Oh, can't. No. Where the hell are you going? No, too far. I am screwing this up. Okay, this has not been my finest hour. No, wrong direction. I'm not having much fun towards the end here. There we go. We're in. So, parking brake on, engine off. Oh, are you ready to find out how dreadful this went? How appalling this was. Let's unhook the trailer. Well, that's the best we really could have hoped for. Good work. We've levelled up. That's good news. So, good work. I would debate that. Driven distance, 1,095 kilometres, which means we're going to get a long distance bonus. Time taken, 23 hours and 30 minutes. Fuel consumed, 459.8 litres. Base reward of £28,509 and 1,095 XP. Proficiency bonus for level 18 of £7,697. ADR Class 6 delivery bonus of 229 XP. Long distance skill rank 3 delivery bonus of £4,204 and 273 XP. Urgent skill rank 2 urgent delivery bonus of £2,802 and 328 XP. Trailer parking bonus of 45 XP as per, and 5% damage penalty. £535, 54 XP. So we ended up with a total of £42,682 and 1,916 XP. That gives us a profile career total of 39,588 XP. We are level 19 professional. Level 20 will be available to us at 43,100 XP. Aside from the end, that was good fun. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books and history and authors. And until the next video, I'll see you on the road.